Robinette D. Cross is a powerful, dynamic, committed servant of the Lord. She is a mother, wife, sister, friend, educator, and the proud founder of Cross-Cultural Talks LLC, where she strives to support academic success and cross-cultural understanding. Her commitment to academic and personal excellence resonates in the power of her speech, ministry, in the classroom, and in her resolve to be a global citizen. Robinette is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and serves her community with the heart of Christ. This Titan believes in the fundamentals of supporting others while she strives to continually unveil the layers of greatness within herself. She and her husband David Cross recently began Business Acumen with Cross-Cultural Talks and work to highlight the greatness in people within local, national, and international community. Her long-standing motto, "Be Great on Purpose," is a driving force for herself, her family, and a wider network. Good day, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Business Acumen with Cross-Cultural Talks. I'm your host for today, David Cross, and I'm here with my better half, my queen, the lovely Robinette Cross. How are you today?
Hey, babe.
We have you here today. We want to talk to you about your business, Cross-Cultural Talks, what you're doing in life. A lot of people are curious. They want to know what Robinette is doing. Where are you from? What do you do? And things of that nature.
Good. Well, thank you so much. It feels a little different being on this side of the camera, I must say, or this side of in this seat.
Yeah, we're switching roles.
Before we started, I wanted to say thank you, my partner in life.
You're welcome.
Because can I say why?
Just say it.
He's not gonna let.
No, go ahead.
His whole life just, you're welcome for being around all this greatness. So I just want to say thank you because, guys, I'm not the host today. I'm really happy to be the guest, and I'm very proud of my husband. He is a creator of Business Acumen with Cross-Cultural Talks, and normally David is the man behind the camera. Sometimes we work with other crew members, so we just want to take some time to say thank you, especially to Will Roy of Blue Media, who is awesome. He actually recorded a previous interview of us, and he is one of the men responsible for the production with Carla Reddit. So we want to just say thank you, acknowledge you, and
thank you, Will.
Yes, Will's the man. And I just want to say to my husband, thank you so much for being brave, because I know this is really out of the box for you. It's not something that you normally do at all, if ever. And I'm just really proud of you for staying the course and for wanting to be beside me. So now to answer your question, I do, I'm Robinette Cross, formerly Robinette Dalton, for those of you who knew me 10 years or more ago. And I am from Richmond, Virginia, born and bred. My mom and dad are super amazing. They're really like the best parents I could have ever prayed for. But my sister, Tina, who's also my baby's other mother.
Hey, sister.
And so my sister and I were raised by our mom. For the most part, my mom was a single mom. Our mom was a single mom until I was maybe 10 or 11. And then she met my dad. And so my dad is just the best dad ever. I know that there's so many people out there who can attest to the fact that just because you were born biologically to someone doesn't necessarily mean that they are skilled enough to be your parent or can carry the weight of parenting. So whereas my husband was raised with both of his parents, my sister and I were raised by a single mother, and then God brought our father to us. So I just want to say just a special shout out to my mother and my father, Bobby and Belinda Johnson. I love you so much. Thank you for being such great parents. I went to elementary school in Richmond. I went to J.B. Stewart Elementary School, which is now Obama Elementary. I would have said Obama Elementary, but David always lets me know that it wasn't Obama Elementary when I attended.
That's right.
And then I transferred over to Henrico County Public Schools. So when I was in middle school, I went to middle school at Fairfield. And then I went to high school at Henrico High School, where I was a proud marching warrior, and I was in the International Baccalaureate program. From there, I went to undergrad at Spelman in Atlanta, Georgia, where
It's all girls school, right?
it is an all-women's HBCU, one of the top HBCUs in the nation. And I graduated with a degree in history with Departmental Honors, and I had a concentration in Africa. From there, I took a year prior to graduate school, and I participated in something called a Fulbright, and I traveled internationally doing some research. Then I went to NYU, where I'm completing my PhD in history with a focus, it's in African history with a focus on Morocco. I am a minister, I am a wife. My greatest accomplishment, I am a mother, and I'm a business owner, and I am a teacher. I teach at the Maggie L. Walker Governor School for Government and International Studies. So from small to big, that's who I am.
Wow, wow. I heard you say that you participated in Fulbright. Can you explain more what that is?
Yes, the Fulbright was actually developed as part of the State Department in the mid 20th century, and basically it was a way where countries could, particularly the United States, could reach across the line with other countries in the world and have an exchange, whether that's academically or culturally. So you can apply through the Fulbright program to go to various different countries across the world. So for example, my college roommate, Juliana Montgomery, she studied in Prague. I studied in Morocco, but you don't just have to do research. You can go as a scholar. You can do research for your academic work. You can teach as well. It's prestigious. I try not to make a big deal of it, but it is a pretty big deal.
What got you into it?
Into Fulbright?
Yeah.
Well, Spelman College has a stellar study abroad program. And when I was there, Dr. Marjorie Gans was the head of our study abroad program. She's actually the one who got me studying abroad anyway, she and Juliana. And when I did a few study abroads, one of which was in Morocco, and I wanted to go back again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just very common for the women of Spelman in my year to apply to do work or to do research right after we finished college and before we entered into graduate school. So, for example, another Business Acumen Titan, Indija Anderson Yanta, she did the Watson Fellowship, which was a $25,000 fellowship, where she went to 7 different countries and she focused on hair in the African diaspora. For the Fulbright, I thought that would be a better fit, so I applied as a way to go back to Morocco before I started a very rigorous program, and also to get some additional language skills under my belt. And so I applied and got accepted, and I went.
How many languages do you speak?
Oh. See, let me tell you something, people. People hear me and they think I speak more languages than I do in real life, and I am a true citizen of the world in that I do speak more than one language well, but I speak, you can say 4.
4?
4, because I speak English, of course, that's my mother's tongue, and French is my second language. And then I speak 2 forms of Arabic. So there is Modern Standard Arabic, or for those of us who speak it, we call it Fusha, and that's the Arabic where you can go to any other Arabic-speaking country and be able to speak it. So everybody would be able to understand it, you can read it, you can write it. And then there is a form of Arabic that is specific to Morocco, and that is called Derija. And so I speak Moroccan Arabic as well.
So which one do you speak more fluently?
Moroccan.
What other countries have you traveled to besides Morocco?
Oh, right. Well, Morocco is like my home away from home. That's really where my heart's joy is, because I've spent collectively over the last 15 years about 3 solid years of my life there. And I also did, when I was at Spelman, I did three consecutive study abroads. So I started in Morocco, which was a happy accident, by the way. And then I did my fall semester in London at the School for Oriental and African Studies, which we call SOAS for short. And then I did my spring semester in South Africa at the University of Cape Town, in Cape Town, South Africa, which is one of South Africa's capital cities. I've studied in France, Switzerland, Nice, just across really continental Europe. And I've presented in Tunisia. I've been some places in South America, and Zimbabwe. That was a story, a whole nother story. I was in Zimbabwe, y'all, just real quick as an aside. Do you mind if I'm telling this story?
I don't mind at all.
Okay, so, oh my gosh. So everybody knows that Robert Mugabe is the more recently deposed leader of Zimbabwe. He is like the NWA of Africa. The problem with that as a dictator is that his people were suffering and he was not.
Mm-hmm.
We got there, and the petrol had to be basically bussed in from very, very far away from the country's capital, which is Harare. And so there were these lines. We had to wait in these lines. I mean, upwards of 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. We had to wait in line so long for petrol that people would come to the lines and bring grills and food and boom boxes and just cook out while we were waiting. Party. It turned into a great big party. And so we were on the compound. We couldn't do all the things that we wanted to do. But one time, my friend Simba was driving us along in the city. And he looked over and he says, "There's Mugabe's house." And I was like, "Ooh, what there?" And if I'd never been hit before by, someone who wasn't like a parent, and I felt this slap across my hand, and I was like the "nuck if you buck" came out in me a little bit, because I was like, I know you didn't just hit me, Simba, like you're getting ready to meet your maker. But then I looked, and there was a military. There was a soldier standing there with this huge gun. And just 2 weeks prior, one of the European students had been taken. And the thing is, they would take you, and they didn't, because of the kind of government he had, they weren't authorized to release you. It was kind of like North Korea,
Mm-hmm.
So if he had seen me pointing at his compound, there would be if he had said, pull over, get out, he could have taken me to prison. Anything could have happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Did I never tell you that?
No, you didn't. I'm glad he slapped your hand.
Exactly. I went from being like, I know you didn't, say thank you so much, really, really quickly. So that's the Zimbabwe story. I was there for fun, but I learned a lifelong lesson from it. So been to a lot of places, lots of fun stories to tell,
Wow. That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
Thanks, babe.
So you mentioned you were a teacher?
Yes.
At Maggie Walker?
I am.
Okay, and that's the governor's school, right?
It is, yes.
Okay, so what do you teach at Maggie Walker? And what is the governor's school?
Well, there are a number of governor schools across the Commonwealth, and most of them are like half-day schools. So our school is actually one that's unique in that it is an all-day school. It is an all-day long program that specializes in academia and has a real focus on international components and on government, and sometimes even government internationally.
Your uncle, who's 100 years old, went to Maggie Walker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am telling. Uncle Edward, I hope you're tuning in today. You're going to get it. So anyway.
He's 105. Okay, I'm good.
My uncle is not. You being so petty. You know what he's doing? He's using this opportunity to get back at my uncle for all the times he was teasing.
Everybody.
Everybody gonna get it today. I teach the equivalent of world history, which is called global studies, 9th grade and 10th grade. And then I teach a class that I built just for seniors called Gender and Culture in the Middle East and North Africa, where we really focus on bottom-up history. We debunk myths. We spend a lot of time focusing on 19th, 20th, and 21st century issues in the region, and I build up their knowledge on origins of that region, and then we kind of jet over to 19th, 20th, and 21st century. And then one of the big components of that class, after we've done all the theory and done all the reading and done all that work, is to go to Morocco over spring break for a week, which is an experiential learning component, and that's what we call theory applied.
Is that the whole class?
Everybody in that class, yes.
Wow. So how many students do you normally have?
Well, it started out, this is my third year teaching the course. Yes, and when I first started, there were 14 students.
Wow.
15, 14 or 15? No, there were 15, I apologize. There were 15 students. And last year, there were 16 students. And this year, I have 26 students. So I will be taking 26 students, 6 adults, or 6 chaperones, our daughter, and I think a couple of more people are coming on the trip. So it's going to be almost a 40-person trip this year.
Wow. So what do you want your students to take from the trip to Morocco and the class in general?
Well, from the class in general, I want them to understand that history is not top down. And even though we hear that, it is not always represented like that where we teach or even where we live. I want them to understand that people were people before colonization happened. And even though we say that, this region is neglected. And so I want them to see people and to see responses and to really understand the region better. And from Morocco, Morocco pushes them to identify with new layers of who they are. And they have to push past things when they're doing homestays. They have to push past loneliness. I teach them language, so they have to force themselves to try to remember, words and phrases and social mores. And I want them to be the best version of themselves. And if I can deposit something different in them that causes them to aim higher and to force them to reach deeper inside of themselves, to understand people in a new way, then I have done my job and I've done it well.
So did your kids enjoy the class and the trip to Morocco?
I know in the beginning of the class, sometimes they didn't like it because we read. And I really hit them hard with theory because they're theoretical components. Gender is a theoretical component. Resistance is a theoretical component. And so they have to, and also understanding these kind of cultural clapbacks. So if you can't talk about this region and you don't have an understanding of who Edward Said is, because it means that you've really learned nothing, and all you're learning, you've learned nothing. And so I do have to hit it hard with them, and they haven't had an experience where they've read bottom-up history so much and bottom-up theory so much. So I have to mold their minds. By the time we get to the second part of the year, they're sharper. They understand, they can pull it out, because in addition to all that they're doing, they're writing an 18 to 20 page paper, or 15 to 20 page paper.
Are they learning a little Arabic along the way?
They are in preparation, because I can't have people go to a country that I consider my home away from home and then they go with nothing but smiles and fanny packs. So, and they're doing homestays when they go. They're doing at least 2 nights of homestays. So I won't be with them, and they need to be able to communicate at least in the most basic way as a form of respect and to communicate a need.
Okay.
And so we start learning just basic Derecho in September, and I do language sessions with them all year long in preparation for our journey in March.
Wow.
Yes.
Maybe I need to take some Arabic classes before I go. I'm going next year, guys. Next year, can't wait.
That's so exciting. This will be his and Maddie's first international trip, so we're very, very excited as a family to be able to go together, and for him to be able to see the love of the country that I love so much. Him to be able to experience that country and to see the world with me now, because normally you'll be like, I'll see you when you get back. We've had so many I'll see you when you get back moments.
Hold down the fort.
He's always been the one. And this, I mean, really, kudos to you, because there have been times when I've been gone 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months. It's, when you think about it, it's like, Lord, am I being selfish? But then you have to, and it's really lonely, and I know it has to be lonely for you. It's very lonely for me too, when you're living that type of lifestyle. People think that it's all fun, but you have moments when you have to push yourself unlike you've ever had to push yourself before. You have to be intentional about maintaining your love for one another, your relationship, your communication. It's critical, isn't it, babe?
Yeah, very critical.
We have to be committed and stay the course in this thing. And the beauty is that I have a spouse who can see the bigger picture with me and understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, and that I'm not really being selfish about it. I'm doing it for us and for our family and for our family's legacy. So if you don't have someone like that in your life, you need to pray to the good Lord to send you someone who will be able to support you that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's true.
Thank you.
It's true.
Well, speaking of the big picture, let's get into cross-cultural talks.
Yeah, sure.
So what services do you offer? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Yeah, so cross-cultural talks actually got the idea in Morocco. And I was with my good girlfriend who is just like my sister. Her name is Sanat. And I was with my homestay family who is outstanding. They're my family. And I stayed the night with her. And she and I were just talking. She's Muslim. And so, I, as a Christian, and those who know me really know that I am on the front lines for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And she is on the front line for her faith. And we love each other as though we don't see that.
So when the first time you went, was it a culture shock?
Initially, I was, and I was in a little bit of a culture shock because I didn't know what to expect. Morocco is not like, is not one of those Muslim countries that mandates that women are veiled in any way.
Mm-hmm.
That is a decision that a woman makes, and in large part, she may be influenced by her family or something like that, but it's her decision. So for example, in my homestay family, I have a sister who wears hijab, who wears a veil.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also have a sister who does not.
Okay.
And
are they sisters?
Yes, they're sisters.
Okay,
yes,
so
that's a very good question.
Yeah,
That was a very good question, because the Quran says, for a man, take ye 2 or 3 or 4 wives as long as you're able to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
So the Quran actually does grant men the right to have up to 4 wives, but a maximum of up to 4 wives, as long as they can provide for the need of each family. So for example, you can't have one wife in a house and one wife in, some shabby space.
Mm-hmm.
That if this wife has a house, the other wife has to have a house.
No.
And they cannot cohabitate. So you can't, it's not like sister wives. These women have to have their own homes where they raise their own children. And if you cannot provide that, and the man has to provide the allowance. So you remember that phrase, what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours?
Yeah.
No. What's yours is, what's mine is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to pay my allowance. And if you don't pay my allowance, I take you to court and you can be in prison until you pay my allowance, and we still married. So Sena and I were talking, and we were just saying that, there's no real reason why people cannot communicate cross-culturally and love each other without judgment, and even have a different faith. There's no reason. We come from two completely different parts of the world.
That's right.
Two completely different parts of the world. But I love her more strongly than I love a lot of people that I know, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we just met by happenstance. But our hearts have stayed together, and I just thought that that was amazing, and we should be able to do that as a people. And I wanted to be able to help provide that extension. And I also, I asked the Lord, especially my Fulbright year, because I had to, that's where I found my spiritual gumption. That's when I found my Paul, like my Apostle Paulness was during my Fulbright year, because I couldn't just run home and I couldn't just pick up the phone and call or cry it out. Like I had to learn how to be strong in the Lord. And so, and in the power of his might. So I was looking around at people, you know, I don't have that kind of gifting where like I can do people's hair or I can do people's nails and all that kind of stuff, you know. I don't have that anointing. So I was like, God, I want to be able to do something for the people. What can I do? And it just so happened that when Sanaa and I were talking, I also realized that there's no way, I might be smart, but there are a lot of smart people. I was specifically and strategically chosen to have the experiences that I had and to be able to benefit the way that I benefited for the benefit of God, of the kingdom, of God's people, even if they don't yet know that they are God's people. So I knew that I had the gift of speech. I am a trained, a well-trained public speaker, and I now train champion public speakers. I've trained politicians. I've trained politicians, I've trained students, I've trained other public speakers, empowerment speakers, and ministers. And so I work behind the scenes to do that, but the finished product you have seen before. And I'm very proud of that. And I have a gift with languages, and I have a knack for writing. And then I came back to the United States, and fast forward to when I got to Maggie Walker, I just saw such a great social justice issue with the inequity of the access that my students had. There's no reason why a child from Petersburg doesn't have the same access as a child from the West End. That's a problem. Or even the child from the East End of Henrico doesn't have the same access as a child from the West End of Henrico. That's a problem for me. That's a severe problem. And then you get these students into systems, to the school system, and then you say, well, they don't deserve to be here. We're lowering our standards. And that's not true. Every child that walked through those doors was labeled gifted. You can't even test to get into that school unless you're labeled gifted. So it's not a matter of whether or not you're gifted. For the most part, it's a matter of what access did you have to a certain amount of resources that placed you in a position that by the grace of God, you're able to perform in a way that a child that did not have the same access is not yet able to perform. So my goal, putting that all together, was to help try to bridge those gaps both in the schools or school-age students and also just with my larger community.
Okay.
So that's why I created Cross Cultural Talks.
So what are you doing to give these students access? Like, what are some of the components of the business?
Yes, good question. So one thing that we offer are speech sessions, and there's a big seminar that I teach called The Power and Posture of the Spoken Word. This is also for intercessors too, where I teach you how your words can command your atmosphere and how to be bold and how to stand strong even if you're nervous. And that helps to give confidence. Even if you don't yet feel it, look the part until you feel the part. I also offer language sessions, so that I offer language in French and in both forms of Arabic. So even if you take it, then you can get a little tutoring on the side. Additionally, we offer assistance with English, history, SOL prep, as well as writing. One thing that we do try to do is a personal statement workshop. how to write a personal statement when you're preparing for college. Gearing up for college is something that we offer, and usually that's a free session that students can come to, and their parents, to get the information. If you are a business owner, then we also talk about grants, and I write grants behind the scenes for people who have been successful at that, and I'm very grateful to the Lord for that as well. So I teach you how to write for grants, how to look for grants. As a matter of fact, that session, grant writing number 1, it teaches you some of the things that you need in order to even start your business. So that's an added bonus. You think you're talking about how to write a grant, but then there's some fundamentals that you need to make sure that you have in place to even be ready for the grant writing process. So it's a 2-step. And then if you need to have those services, you can also purchase those services. So so Cross Cultural Talks is a really big umbrella. And then we branched out this year, because you're the creator, right? We branched out this year and decided that we wanted to celebrate the people in our community and the ones that we know internationally. We see all these great people in social media and in our lives who are doing amazing things, and they're not asking for anything in reward or in response to it. They're just amazing people. They're everyday people who are doing amazing things. And so we decided to start this show, and we called it Business Acumen, and we call those people titans because they are pillars in their domestic and their international communities. So under that big umbrella, all of that is a part of Cross Cultural Talks.
Okay, so how did we come about Business Acumen?
David came up with this show. In November of last year, I don't know what I was doing. I was working some kind of way. I'm always in the bed with my laptop, and David bursts in the room and he said, "Babe, so I have this idea. And just to paraphrase, I want to celebrate, as I mentioned before, the greatness of people we know, because we were hearing so many things about people on social media that were just negative, and he didn't think that there was enough celebration of the positive people who were doing just like amazing things. And so he said, so we should do a show and you should do it. Okay, go. And go ahead.
Because you have the chops for it.
Because I have the chops.
I don't have the chops.
Apparently you do, sir. Look at you now. Ha ha. So I could have just said, "Oh, I don't want to do that." And this is just a little side note for wives. That's what you have to do in partnership. Listen to your spouse and hear them out. He is an excellent visionary. I am an excellent executioner. And so these two things combined is not always easy. One of our overseer for our church, or our network, our church network, Leviticus International Network, Pastor Lacey of Black Hackett, was just talking about that in a recent sermon. Even if you feel like the discussion is heated, you're coming from a place of love, so I can still hear you through that heated discussion in love.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt,
No,
but we had a heated discussion last night about uplifting children, just to piggyback off what you said, but it was all out of love. It wasn't no hate or anything. It was just a heated discussion.
It was. But we always come back to, we always do. We come back to the place of we love kids. Mm-hmm. We want the best for them. If it were our child, what we want for her. And we love each other, and we know that we would never do anything to harm each other. And so I heard him when he said that was something that he wanted to do. Even though David throws an idea out, which is a great idea, and then he just drops it like a bag of money, and it's like, go do it. So, so he gave me the idea, and basically I contacted people, and he would also mention people who were excellent. And something that he didn't do before was get behind a camera. So he taught, he's self-taught in this, and he wanted to participate so much that he got behind a camera and got a tripod, and we're doing this thing together to celebrate people. This is a part of ministry too. This is a part, like, we work together all the time. He's here for every interview, on time, ready, because this is a vision that he wanted to have realized, and I just want to be a support in that in any way I can.
And what do you want the participants to get out of this? Like, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of Business Acumen?
So the main purpose of Business Acumen is to create a larger network where we bring together all these different brilliant minds, and we have almost like a repository of people and companies that we can pull from, and they can pull from each other. So you don't have to keep going outside of, if you're in the African American community, you don't have to keep funneling African American dollars outside of the African American community. You have everything you need right here. Get to know one another, get to know the strengths, get to know what you offer. So if you have a big event, a small event, something you need, you can pull right from inside of the Titan pot. And we want to be able to stretch that both domestically, locally, domestically, and even internationally.
And we have great people. They give back to the community, and they do a good job in whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, we talked about one of the Titans earlier, Will Roy. He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. The first Titan on this show was Amanda Shelton, and she just had a huge no-bully zone event. She is not afraid to put her feet to the pavement, but then she also is the owner of Powerhouse Financial. She is just an amazing woman. Carla Reddit, Carlos Vieira. We have just had Ben Brown of Ben Creative. We have Stacy, the lawn surgeon, coming up. We also have psychologists coming, Dr. Lee Rydens. We have consultants that are coming down the line. We have artists of all kinds. Sansa Ray Burrell just had an event this past weekend. We also have Paula of PGA Artistry. We have people who specialize in so many different areas. One of my cousins, Aaron Person. We have pastors, our former pastor, Pastor Marlon Anderson, leading the Renaissance movement. People who are just giving their yes. We're not asking for money. We're not offering money. We just want to celebrate people because they're great. And that's really what it's all about. I know I missed one or two. I missed a lot of them because we've done now about 30 interviews. We've missed, but people, they come on Hangouts. We've done virtual interviews. It's just amazing the work that we have been able to do because people have given their yes. And this is our first year.
So I hate to jump all over the place, but we were talking about cross-cultural talks and how you're a writer, and I know that you have a book coming out. So, do you want to tell the good folks about your new book?
I love you, the good folk.
The good folk.
Come on, good folk. Hey, good folk. Yes, well, I co-authored, so it's an anthology with about 48 other writers. A book called Junia Arise, which is under the guidance of Apostle Axel Sippick, and there were a number of us who, basically Junia is referenced in the Bible by the Apostle Paul.
Okay.
And she was an apostle who inspired him. And over time, Junia was morphed into Junius, or tried to be phased out as an apostolic woman. And so that's where the title comes from. Junia arise from the ashes, like a phoenix. And so that anthology is talking about women who we consider to be Junias, and they look at the apostolic trailblazing giftings of women who are in the Bible, who are not in the Bible, but who are women of faith. So I focused actually on Mother Teresa.
Okay.
And so just looking at how she was able to answer the call, and even in her bouts of loneliness, the call of an apostle is not necessarily one that has a bunch of friends attached to it. But you have a lot of knowledge, but your job is to lay down the foundation. And you have to do it if you're afraid. You have to do it if you're alone. But that is the call of God. An apostle is a trailblazer. That means that they go out into uncharted territories, and that means that they have to go it alone sometimes, but they're never really alone because they always have God. So my piece focused on Mother Teresa.
Okay, that sounds like a good addition of the book.
Well, I pray so.
Especially if you wrote it.
Babe, I love you. Love you. Oh, real quick,
Okay.
Another co-author, and the person, I sit at her feet, the person who told me to participate in the anthology in the first place is my spiritual mother, Pastor Cheryl Weems. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. We love you, we appreciate you. There's just my heart. And so she's also a co-author in the anthology.
Okay, where could they find the book?
I would hope that you wanted to buy it from me. You can contact me directly by emailing me. My contact information will run at the bottom of this discussion, but you can email me at crossculturaltalks@gmail.com. The book is $20.
So I know you just mentioned Pastor Cheryl, and I know she's a big inspiration in your life. Who are some other people that inspire you? And why?
You know, it's going to sound like a cliche, but I don't care. Christ. As a minister, and not even as a minister, as a believer, we are taught to pattern our lives after him. And so I seek only to do the will of the Father. And Jesus said, greater works shall you do. So I intend to do greater, but you can't do greater until you know what the great was. So I am definitely inspired by and pattern my life after Christ. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, oh, he's amazing. He wrote most of the New Testament, and he went from being in a place, and he was so honest about who he was and how he felt, and he counted it all joy anyway. Even if he had to chastise his flesh or to beat his flesh to be disciplined, he taught that the walk is not always easy, but it's always worth it. And you know, Paul would have had the equivalent of multiple doctorates in our day. And he is who I consider to be a true global citizen. He knew who he was. He spoke multiple languages. He had an understanding of those cultures. And I really believe that in order to be a global citizen, then you have to adopt multiple languages, and you have to have an understanding that can reach across cultural barriers and pierce the heart of people. So I'm inspired by him. I'm inspired, of course, by my mom, my parents, my sister, just people who are really my daughter, our daughter, where's my mind? I don't really have, like, I want to be like this famous person in the world, not necessarily. But I do have the people in my life who love me very much, and they push me to be the best version of myself that God has called me to be. For my Spelman sisters, Claire, Camila, Juliana, respectively, they have a JD, an MD, and an ME. Not ME, an ME. And so if you surround yourself with greatness, and my mother never let me feel sorry for myself. And so I'm so grateful because I never knew boundaries. So I don't allow myself to experience them now, and we don't allow our daughter to experience that either. So,
speaking of our daughter, what do you want to instill in her in the future?
Oh.
What do you want her to get from you?
She already is the best of me. Because she was God's greatest gift to my life, because everybody who knows me in real life, like they know, like don't ask me to watch your kids. I'm not a kid watcher. It's not that I don't like children. They just give me a lot of anxiety. So I don't like to spend a lot of time with them. Don't do that.
She don't, but she do.
But I don't. So like I should be your last call, like even after you call like a robot, like call the robot and then call me. But I didn't think that I wanted to be a mother because I didn't think that I could be. I grew up thinking that I was afflicted and that I would not be able to have children. So in my mind, I didn't want the disappointment of feeling like my body wasn't functioning the way that a woman's body was supposed to function. And so I convinced myself that I didn't want children. And I'm grateful for my husband because he married me even when I said I didn't want children. And then one day, God changed my heart and I wanted a child. And so we tried and we tried and we prayed and we tried and I wasn't getting pregnant. And for those of you all, those women who know what it feels like to want a child, but every month you find out that you've not had a child, it's like a death. And you feel like a failure, like your body's not doing what it's supposed to do. And then I met with our then pastor, Pastor Marlon, who is now over in Las Vegas leading the Renaissance movement. And he came over to our house and he had pizza. And cupcakes. Pastor Marlon and I we were talking, and David, we were talking. And, I've grown up in the church my whole life, but I didn't understand really the power. You hear people say tithe, but you don't understand the power of the tithe. And so, when he left, I just, the Holy Spirit just came upon me, and I wrote my first tithe. I wrote my first check to tithe. Not that I hadn't given, but that's offering. And that's seed. That's not what I wasn't given a tithe. So I wrote my first tithe. And almost immediately, I started feeling unwell. I wasn't feeling well. And I went to the doctor and they said I wasn't pregnant, but I still wasn't feeling well. And so I just wasn't pregnant enough because we had gotten our hopes up so much that David, I told my mom I'm going to go take the test. I'm going to take the test. So I made sure that I did not go to the bathroom. When I woke up that morning, I ran to Walgreens, full bladder and all. And I remember that morning, babe? Mm-hmm. David wouldn't get out of the bed. And then I was screaming. I was like, oh my God, it's positive, I'm pregnant. And he made me take the second test. So I had to drink this big old gallon of Sunny Delight to take the test again. And we were just so full of joy when we knew that God heard our prayers and he gave us, because he didn't have to. And he gave us this angel to be in our lives. And we are so grateful for her. So she has, the whole time I was sick every day and didn't care. I was vomiting and just as happy as a lark, because I knew that the Lord's favor, like Hannah in the Bible when she prayed and God opened up her womb and she had Samuel. Madison is a prophet and she's got the anointing of healing and prophecy on her. And when I prayed and I asked God what I should name her, I'm fine. It's okay. I don't care if people see me crying over this. I'm so proud to be her mom. When I asked God what we should name her, Pastor Marlon had also prophesied, went over us, me and Monique Brown, who's they're getting ready to welcome their third baby, and she was pregnant with twins. Their twins are, she and Ben, their twins are 7 weeks older than Madison. So she was a step ahead of me every time, just a wonderful, it was so good to be pregnant with her. And I said, God, well, what should I name her? And my best friend and I, we wanted to name our children names that people couldn't tell what color they were on paper or what gender they were on paper so that they could have a fair shake. And so I put the names that were most powerful in the middle. And so I named her, this time I can say I because I named her. David's responsible for the last name and I'm responsible for everything else. But so I named her Madison. Because Madison Cross, you don't know if she's a boy or girl. You don't know if she's brown or if she's white or what she is, So I named her Madison Cross, and then I named her Imen. Imen is Arabic for faith. And her other middle name is Reign, which is Dominion, R-E-I-G-N. But I didn't know at the time that Madison also means gatekeeper or guardian. And so her name put together, and like the come up of that last name, every part of her name, gatekeeper, faith, dominion, crucifixion, all of that exemplifies the power and authority that she has. So what can I do as her mother is I take my job as her mother, the privilege that I have to help have a hand in raising her, and I give her the best part of me so she doesn't have to struggle with languages. My daughter she's moving through 3 languages. I try to, the whole community really who's responsible for her, we expose her to different cultures. We expose her to, I don't really put limitations on what she's capable of doing because I've never been a mom before, so I don't know what the limitations should be. So I just treat her life like it's limitless because it is.
Exactly. Whatever she likes to do, we feed it. We feed it.
Yes.
And hopefully it'll grow into something. That's how we raise her.
That's how we raise her, and we raise her fearless. We don't raise her foolish. We raise her fearless. And we really try to, I keep her in the church. My child can pray. Oh, she can pray so well. And it's not one of those the way she prays, it's not one of those ways where I've been mocking you. No, she seeks the Lord and she seeks his understanding. And I'm just so grateful, really, to be able to watch her grow. So my goal, to answer your question, come back around, I'm sorry I spent so much time, but I count it a privilege and an honor to mother this child, and so I just want to give her the best of me at all times.
You know, one time she told me, I don't know if I should be saying this, but one time she said, "Dad, I know I look like Mom, but I want to be Mom."
Yeah, that took my breath away.
Yeah. I told her, you don't want to be Mom, you want to be better than Mom. So.
Greater works. Greater works. Greater works. I never, what did Faith Evans say? I never knew a love like this before. I've never known such a thing. I've never known such a thing. It's amazing. It's amazing. I don't want to do it with another child. You hear this on camera. I have this on camera. Oh, I love it.
Well.
No, don't go back. All right. So we're good to go. But yeah, we really try to be awesome parents to her, and we don't teach her about excuses, and we don't teach her about feeling sorry for herself. We raise her strong.
Sure. So, what other things do you want to tell the good people, the Facebook family and the YouTube subscribers?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for helping to make this show successful, for seeing what we are trying to do, and for believing in it, because this show would not continue if you did not watch it and you wanted to celebrate people the way that we do. So thank you for seeing our hearts behind what we're doing. We're not trying to be infamous, we're just trying to celebrate greatness. And I do want to just say a couple things because I know that we may be over time, and I wanted to tell you, first of all, I really believe in the power of setting your atmosphere. So don't offer excuses for yourself or why you can't do something. Don't do that. Don't sabotage yourself with excuses before you make a step. Don't offer not one excuse for why you're not successful. Dig deep into the thing, and God will do the rest for you. Faith without works is dead. So you can want a thing, but if you don't work for the thing, it will never materialize. So you'll just be sitting around with a lot of good ideas, but nothing to show for yourself. So believe that you can do it. There are 3 phrases that I use a lot. Because I don't try to offer excuses for myself, and my husband has to sometimes tell me that I've reached a point where I just need to take a rest, because self-care is important. And that is nevertheless. You know, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he knew that he was about to die, he was afraid, and his flesh was on the chopping block, and he told the Lord, he was like, God, you know, Father, this cup is too much. This pill is too bitter for me. But then he girded up his loins, he stirred up his step, and he said, well, he actually said, if it be your will, please take this bitter cup from me. And then he got his bearing straight, and he said, but nevertheless, not my will, but let your will be done. And so you really have to adopt a nevertheless kind of spirit. Nevertheless will teach you discipline. There is discipline that you have to have in order to be successful. So discipline yourself for the thing that you're called to do. Get yourself fit. That's why Paul said, I chastise my flesh so that it's in shape to do the thing that I needed to do. So discipline yourself, and then give yourself permission to be great. You know, we live in a society that tries to chastise us for thinking that we're great. The word of the Lord, according to Psalm 139:14, David said, Lord, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, O God. And then the Amplified Version says, my soul knows this full well. That means the anchoring of who I am and the core of my being acknowledges the greatness of you that is in me, so much so that I don't walk around thinking that I'm better, but I know that I'm great. So give yourself permission to feel that, because God breathed something special into you that only you can possess for his people. And then once you do that, let every step that you take be intentionally great. That's why we end the show every day or every segment with go and be great on purpose. So you have to adopt the discipline and give yourself permission to be as awesome as God created you to be. And then let everything that you do in the movement be in the direction of the greatness of your purpose. So be great. And don't offer any excuses of why you can't. So I just want to tell you all that. I pray that it settles well with you to do that, and that you're encouraged by it. I know that that's a little tangential, and I'm sorry for doing that.
No, you good, Minister Cross.
Listen.
So if someone want to get in contact with you, how will they reach you?
Well, you can email me at crossculturaltalks@gmail.com. I am on Facebook and Instagram, Cross Cultural Talks, or privately, or personally is what you call it, Robinette D. Cross. You can also check my website, crossculturaltalksllc.com.
Family, thank you so much for tuning in to this special segment of Business Acumen with Cross Cultural Talks. David and I pray that this blesses your soul just as much as you've been a blessing to us. Tune in, same time, same place, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, next Saturday morning as we celebrate another titan in business and service. Don't forget to go and be great on purpose. God bless you.